Alright, Santa Claus here to bring you guys patch 6.24 rundown. So, we're gonna just jump right into it. Champion, Camille. No one cares because I don't think... Is she actually in it? No, she's not. She's never in it. Akali. Passive procs on turrets. Congratulations. Alright, Azir. W cooldown reduce, Sun Disc, steal more damage, and give enemies less gold. Okay? Attack damage scaling, 3 per minute, 4 per minute. Enemy reward when destroyed, 100 gold to 50 gold. That's pretty big actual buff. Arise, the cooldown is lowered, but I don't think these are the problems that is preventing Azir from being in competitive play, so it doesn't really matter. Fiddlesticks, Drain, damage per tick, 60 to 180 scaling to 80 to 180 scaling. Definitely helps his early clears. Dark Wind cooldown from 15 seconds to 11 scaling to 12 to 10 seconds. That's pretty big, but again, I still don't know how that actually affects his clear. Fiddlesticks is just in an awful spot right now because of the Krugs. And I'm not so sure that this is going to change it that much. Although, I think this is supposed to be the patch where Krugs actually gets nerfed slightly. But this isn't the only problem that he's having inside of the jungle right now. There's a lot of other problems, and the fact that he's one-dimensional doesn't help at all. And he doesn't have any, like, terrain, like, jump or whatever. Well, outside of his ultimate, of course. Fizz. Clarity improvements around are whiffed. Are fish attaches to enemies that step on them. Okay, so Trump the Water nerf, that's fair. Garen. Spinning shreds enemy armor after 4 hits. New. Armor shred. Enemy champions hit 4 times have their armor reduced by 25% for 6 seconds. Hits after the 4th refresh on the duration. That's a pretty big buff. I don't think that's enough to make him actually viable, though. Ivern. E costs more mana and slows for less. Trigger speed 50 to 70 mana. Movement speed slows 70% to 40, 45, 50, 55, 60%. This isn't going to do anything to him. Ivern's problem isn't the trigger seed. Also, if this does affect any of his early clears or any of his early shenanigans, we're just going to be able to fix this by putting 1 point into meditation. And then that'll completely solve this problem. Outside of that, the 70% slow, well, it is going to be noticeable maybe inside of the first gank. Outside of the first gank, it's not going to be noticeable at all. And once it reaches the later stages of the game, the extra 10% being removed is just basically going to be novelty. This isn't the problem with Ivern. Ivern's problems is that he's really oppressive. His shield is too spammable in the later stages of the game. And then on top of that, Daisy's just busted and offers too much utility way too fast. Primarily because of Daisy's movement speed, actually. Anyways, Katarina, dagger damage increased in the early mid-game. That's pretty nice, but again, Katarina, I think, is just in a very awkward spot where she can't really survive against the current meta mid-laners. A lot of the champions are like that, but it'll be interesting to see. She's completely just absent in Korean solo queue. I have no idea about NA and EU. W, Arcane Barrage. 2 to 6% max health, to 3 to 7% max health. That's a nice little buff. E Voidu 60 to 260 to 60 to 240, and an ability power nerf. So this is buffing ADC Kog'Maw. I guess it's not a super big nerf to AP Kog'Maw in the end. Well, it is to a certain degree. Maybe this actually affects some of his wave clear. I'm not entirely sure of the number ratios on that, but nonetheless, this is pretty good. That and Blade of the Ruined King buff most recently is pretty good for Kog'Maw. LeBlanc getting gutted, it seems. Base health regen 8.5 to 7.4. Health regen growth stat 0.8 to 0.55. Damage orb 55 to 155. Scaling 55 to 195. Okay. Bounce damage versus minion. Okay, so the bounce damage is down, but the assassination damage is up. That's pretty good, actually. That's pretty fair. Ethereal Chains 40 to 140 to 40 to 120. So 20 damage lost there, but 40 picked up ultimately in the end. So still 20 damage picked up in a combo. Master Yi, Alpha Strike, better follows enemies that flash away after being tagged. Okay, that's a nice little buff, but doesn't make Master Yi viable. Nidalee, plus 5.12 AD. Whereas Nidalee's last... I don't know exactly how this affects her clear speed. I really don't know how this affects her clear speed, so I can't really comment on that. Rengar, overall, Bone Tooth Necklace bonuses reduced, attack damage per level increased. Attack damage base growth stat, 1 to 1.5, so he gets half an AD per, so he gets 9 AD for free. He gets a free longsword at level 18. Bone Tooth Necklace, 1 to, okay, so he actually gets more damage in total, even without Bone Tooth Necklace. Wait, what? I don't understand how that's fair. Wait, what? Percentage bonus. 1, 3, 7, 13, 20% bonus attack damage. That's not enough. The way in which he's rewarded is not fair. The problem with Rengar is his CC immunity is too busted. And so the damage itself is just a novelty, where if he gets ahead, he's extremely oppressive, and even if he doesn't get ahead, he's still really strong. These aren't the issues with him. I mean, yeah, the damage is a little bit obnoxious, but it's kind of laughable. The Bone Tooth should be unique champions. Maybe I'm wrong. No, I think it should just be unique, sort of like Bounty Hunter. But I think it's just per champion killed, I think, right? Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. Actually, I'm gonna search Rengar right now, just because I don't totally know if I am right or wrong on this. Wait, Bone Tooth Necklace gains a trophy whenever a champion he damaged in the previous second dies. Rengar can only gain 1 trophy per enemy champion, up to 5. Oh, okay, so it is unique. Okay, that's fine. Oh, never mind, that's fine. But even still, like, Rengar is almost always going to get at minimum 3. So 7% bonus attack damage, well, that's not as disgusting as 13 or 20. I mean, there's going to still be games where he does get 4 and 5, and that's just not fair. I really just feel like that's not fair. Like, that passive is too valuable. You take a lot of look at some of the passives in League of Legends, and while his is sort of conditional, it's not one that is really outside of the norm, right? Like, a passive, for example, that is just utterly trash and it is outside of the norm is like Shyvanna. Because Shyvanna is not always going to be getting those dragons and, you know, being able to get the dragons. And even if the opportunity does exist to get the dragon, it's not even really that worthwhile. Shaco, bug fix, that's good. Shyvanna, passive can now be stacked on Hell. Okay, that's fantastic. Twitch, passive damage decreased, W, mana cost increased. That's just a weird nerf. Random, that's out of left field. Passive, Living Vengeance, 50% bonus attack speed on champion, kill assist, half for minion or monster. Okay, that's pretty good. Vayne, Q damage down at later rank, 0 to 0.7 total attack damage, to 0.3 to 0.5 total attack damage. That's pretty fair because Vayne is in a very interesting spot right now. Rylais Crystal Scepter, total cost 3,200 to 2,600, a much faster wake-up item. Some could actually see this as a buff for, like, Ivern, for instance, the AP variation route. This will probably be a buff to some champions because of how much sooner it can get onto the battlefield. Losing 100 HP, it's noticeable, but it's not the end of the world. The 100 to 75 ability power, this is very painful because mages have been getting hit endlessly, and you know, mages that used to have 600 AP you know, a year ago or something, now they have like 450 or like 500, and the ability power ratios, or the ability power being granted by some of the items right now is just pretty laughable. 20% for 1 second in all cases. It is a nerf and it will hit some champions, but I think that people are really overestimating how it's going to impact some of the builds because there's not really that many better items available. And also with the change to Abyssal Scepter and Haunting Guise and Liandry's Torment just becoming so much better than the other items that are available, I mean, the synergy that these two items grant in themselves I think is pretty valuable. So there is that. Living Jungle. In general, when activating plants, use the basic attack animation. Plants shouldn't trigger combat interactions. In other words, activating plants should similar. Okay, that's all good. Red and blue buffs. Okay. Duration: 120 seconds on first buff, 90 seconds thereafter. 120 seconds on all buffs. That's pretty good for everyone actually. I really like that. Basic attacks no longer deal a tick of red buff damage on hit. That's pretty painful, but I think that the trade-off is actually pretty fair post first red buff. Blue buff no longer grants 15% ability power. That's a very big change to just sort of like take away from the game, especially when you nerf one of the other magic items. You're taking away a lot of damage that certain champions could have expected to have at certain points in the game, and I don't really feel like that's that fair. I think that maybe the AP should have just been put into other areas or other items or whatever that mages would get. Anyways, Ancient Krug now grants 125 to 62.5 experience on first kill. Okay, this is pretty fair. So this takes away the level 3 cheeses. That's a pretty interesting change, and I mean, it's fair. Cards of the Colossus. Cooldown up at early level, shield bonus per nearby enemy down, okay? Cooldown 45 to 30 seconds at levels 1 through 18. Shield per nearby enemy, 7 to 5%. This is still a pretty busted mastery. Early on, this is going to be not, it's barely going to be noticeable. I mean, the change here, though, the 10% max health being lost in the end, if you do get a 5-man card to the Colossus, that'll be noticeable in the late game. So it will require some champions that are just going glass cannon, just relying on the courage proc on 5 champions to sustain them through the fight. They'll have to maybe now actually be required to invest into a defensive item. Fervor of Battle. Stacks last longer, fewer stacks required. This is a pretty good buff. Max stacks 10 to 8. Attack duration 4 to 6. Attack damage per stack 1 to 6. At levels 1 through 18 to 1 to 8. That's pretty good. Max damage is 8 to 64. This is pretty good. This definitely helps some of the AD carries. Most notably, it's going to be like Ezreal and whatever. And I guess this also probably helps like Lucian as well. League client update, spectator update. That's all good. Not really going to look into that too much. Q health update. What does this update mean? Solo Q and okay. Bug fixes. Okay, I feel like that's all fine. Upcoming Sins, Santa Braum, and Snow Day Graves, and Winter Wonder Karma. I really would have just wished for like something like, I don't know, cooler. I don't feel like these skins are that great. I feel like they could have done a lot of very unique things with some champions for like a Santa theme or like a Christmas theme. All in all, I think this is a pretty okay patch. Nothing really too big is happening. I don't think that anyone comes into the meta. I don't think anyone leaves from the meta. Like I said, the Ivern, that's able to be fixed inside of Masteries because he is a pretty popular pick right now. LeBlanc getting a buff is pretty nice because she's basically the only like reliable super S tier assassin that I think made it through from the assassin reworks, at least in terms of consistency and stuff. Rengar, it's not a proper change. Still no Syndra nerfs. You may like I just don't even understand what is actually going on there because that just doesn't make any sense either. And no Jace nerfs either. So you really have to wonder like what is going on. But all in all, that's it for patch 6.24. And yeah, okay, Merry Christmas, ho ho ho. All right, that's it.